Hi, my name is Celeste Lee, and yes, you guessed it, I'm married to Jet Li over there, Major Jet Li over there. And by the way, thanks for taking such good care of him and not giving him a ridiculous call sign like Goose or something ludicrous like that. I'm a family practice doc, and in my spare time, I run the personnel department of our military flight simulation business, which means that I get to manage people, which actually means I get to mediate all the petty disputes that go on in the shop. In order to learn how to manage, I've been reading some business books, and some of them were pretty helpful. So I told Jet, sorry, I keep forgetting his name. Next thing you know, I was voluntold to give this talk on team building. I know, the very word team building makes you roll your eyes. Oh no, not another rah-rah team building lecture. Are we going to be holding hands and singing kumbaya? Or isn't team building just a code word for making robots or worker bees? Well, let me reassure you that this is none of that. And if we start heading in that direction, you can just throw me out because I hate public speaking. Remember, I was voluntold to do this. So, okay, I admit it. We are going to talk about being the ideal team player. But humor me here. See it with new eyes. Because in reality, becoming an ideal team player actually sets you up for success. These two are actually interchangeable. Ideal team player, positioned for success. Becoming an ideal team player will make you stand out. It's going to make you the ideal candidate for hire, the perfect one for promotion, the epitome of a leader. It's going to make you Superman. Well, maybe not quite. But if you are the one hiring and firing, you will know whom to hire and fire. John Maxwell wrote a book called The 17 Essential Qualities of a Team Player. Now, get your notebooks out because we are going to dive deep into these 17 qualities over the next 17 hours. So I hope you brought your sleeping bags. No, just kidding. I sat down with John Maxwell over dinner and I asked him to narrow it down to 3 for us. And Patrick Lencioni also hones it down into 3 in his book, The Ideal Team Player. We're searching for 3 qualities that really make a difference. Just 3 things. 3 attributes that make for an ideal team player. 3 attributes that set you up for success. What do you think they are? Come on.
Blah, blah,
Let's
blah,
hear
blah,
it.
blah.
Shout them out. Okay, here are the 3 biggies. Drum roll, please. Passion, people skills, humility. What? You were expecting family connections? Brains? Luck? Oh, come on. Leonisi makes us a really sweet visual here. Check it out on the slide. When we are strong in all 3 areas, we are going to land at the intersection of those circles. And that is going to best position us for success. Okay, let's break it down. Let's start with passion. Lencioni calls this hunger. John Maxwell calls it enthusiasm. What does passion look like? Let me give you an example. Jet, sorry about that, has a passion for airplanes. This motivated him to get his pilot's license. It drove him to build his own jet simulator. And then another one, and then another one. Notice this is all self-motivated. No one paid him a penny. Next, he joined a company that builds military jet simulator parts. And because he's so passionate, he became the CEO. And because of his hunger to fly a real military jet, he joined the Air National Guard. And then he became a flight surgeon, and then he really got to fly an F-15. All good stuff, right? Well, yeah, if he stopped right there. There's boundaries, When he built the 6th cockpit for our home and had no place to put it but in the bedroom, he finally crossed that line. Busted! Okay, so I would call that falling into an unhealthy passion. Maybe even an obsession. But unhealthiness aside, notice how Jet, was completely self-motivated. Notice how he went above and beyond. He's a doctor, for crying out loud. Did he really need to become CEO of a military flight simulation business? John Maxwell would point out that Jet's intentionality, okay, that's a tongue twister, but Maxwell insisted on it, so it's key. I better put it in here. Maxwell said, passion without action gets you nowhere. Jet put all his passion into action, and that's intentionality. Now, I'm going to make this, now I know this is going to be really obvious, but Jet made me this really funny slide, so I had to put it in here. Okay, which guy are you going to hire? Which guy are you going to promote? Okay, all right, so what do? If we really want the promotion and we realize that we lack passion, well, first of all, understand that lack of passion doesn't mean we're lazy. We might have started out the job passionate, but we got burnt out on the way. And even the most enthusiastic people struggle with passion from time to time. The good news is that passion, or lack of it, isn't wired into your DNA. So you want to grow in passion? Start hanging out with passionate people. Behave in the way you want to become. Go the extra mile. Stir up some excitement. Maxwell reassures us that this is not hypocrisy. We are just acting our way into being enthusiastic. Okay, let's review. 3 attributes to set you up for success: passion, people skills, humility. Oh, there we go. Let's talk about people skills next. Lencioni calls it people smarts. Maxwell describes it as relational. What does it look like if someone has people smarts? Someone with good people sense knows how to read people. They know when they're getting a connection, and they know when they're getting on someone's nerves. They know how to tailor their response right on the spot based on the action that they're getting. Now, I'm pretty good at reading people, and some of you are kind of nodding and yawning, so I think that means I better dive into those 17 qualities about right now. No, just kidding. Truly, someone lacking people skills doesn't necessarily have a bad heart or the wrong intentions. It doesn't mean they don't care. It doesn't mean they're inconsiderate or unkind. They might simply not be wired that way and haven't had an opportunity to learn any people skills. So what happens if you don't have it? Can it be taught or trained? Absolutely. My son, Alec, at 27, is pretty cool. Well, I could be a little biased here, but at any rate, he's an engineer, businessman, and in charge of a bunch of people at work, connected with friends, mentoring high school boys, about to be engaged to his sweetheart. But he wasn't always so polished. When he was a young kid, he was this typical scrawny Asian kid, quiet, shy, not naturally born with people sense. When he was a little kid, he had to be taught how to look people in the eye and how to make conversation. When he was in middle school, he had to be taught how to listen well to grasp the heart behind the words. Fortunately, he went into a public high school that was so diverse it was affectionately dubbed the United Nations, so he got a lot of practice working with people from different backgrounds. And when he started getting interested in the opposite sex, he suddenly realized why we had taught him to treat women, indeed all people, with respect. Today he's often complimented on his people skills, but Alec would be the first to tell you that people skills don't come naturally to him, and even today he has to still work hard to connect. Okay, let's do a little practicing. Let's pretend you're with your friend. You've embarked on a lengthy conversation of the ins and outs of your job, and you notice that your friend looks like this. Here's your picture of somebody falling asleep. Okay, so you A, dive into even more details because that'll surely wake him up. Or B, get angry and walk out of the room. Or C, douse him with ice water so that he wakes up. See, you're already good at this. Okay, how about this one? You begin to talk to your coworker about their annoying behavior of picking their nose in front of the boss. Is your coworker receptive? The next picture. Okay. If you have people skills, you know how to handle difficult situations without offending people. You know how to partner with people to get the job done. Now, word of caution here. Good people skills doesn't always mean good intentions. Someone can be very engaging, even charming, and yet be using their ability for selfish or manipulative behavior purposes. John Maxwell let me into a little secret on people skills. Are you ready? It's respect. You should see John Maxwell in action. He treats the famous and the yard workers exactly the same. He greets them enthusiastically by name. He takes an interest in people's lives. He looks for ways to give people a leg up, calling it adding value to them. Here's how he says it. Treat everyone with respect, even before they have done anything to deserve it, simply because they're human beings. And at the same time, always expect to have to earn your own respect from others. If you really want to grow in people skills, I've got one more suggestion. It's not easy though. It's going to require you to be teachable and willing to accept constructive criticism. Are you ready? Okay, here it is. Ask someone who's good at it to coach you up. No, I'm not talking about a paid coach. I'm talking about someone you feel comfortable with. Someone who sees a lot of you, who can be sort of an accountability partner. Someone with courage to tell you when you missed it, and preferably someone who would say it with gentleness. And you've got to be teachable or you won't get anywhere with this one. Okay, so we've covered 2 of the 3 attributes to set you up for success. Passion and people skills. Got a bit of alliteration going on now. Passion, people skills. Now I've saved the hardest one for last. Are you ready? Humility. I know, it doesn't begin with a P. I tried, I really did. And I really tried to think of an easier to swallow word, but I couldn't think of anything. So you're stuck with humility. Don't you hate it when the know-it-all comes into the room? Arrogant, out for himself, certainly not a team player. I'm going to tell you a story about when I was a know-it-all. When I graduated from medical school and I finished my residency in family medicine, I worked in private practice in Chicago for a while, and then we moved to Florida and I specialized in HIV and AIDS. I had built 2 very successful practices over a 26-year period. So when I transitioned to work in a crisis pregnancy center, I came in as a know-it-all. I thought, I got a lot to offer. A lot of experience, a lot of wisdom, a lot of compassion. I thought that I had so much to offer that I should tell the nurses and the counselors how to do their jobs that they had been doing successfully for many years. You can imagine that this didn't go over very well with the company, and they actually removed me from the clinics for a few months until I had a heart change. I had to learn how they ran things. I had to learn their culture and their game plan and their mission, and I had to see how I could fit into that mission. I had to learn humility. Both John Maxwell and Patrick Lencioni insist that humility is by far the most important attribute for success. John Maxwell told me that he considers this to be so important that he weaves it throughout all 17 of his qualities. So how did I learn humility? When I was removed from the clinics, I was suddenly aware. Crucial first step. Before that, I was pretty oblivious. I spent some time doing some hard introspection and challenging heart work. I learned that lack of humility is always related in some way to insecurity, often rooted in childhood and family issues that go way, way back. I felt a little better to know that everyone is insecure in one way or another, but some of us have been more deeply impacted by our upbringing and our experiences. Next, I had to apologize to those I had offended and ask forgiveness. I also had to humble myself and ask the nurses to teach me things that I didn't know. Let me tell you that from personal experience, doing humbling things like that begins to produce some humility in you. As I grew in humility, I began to become useful in the clinics. I was promoted and I eventually became medical director, now able to help the team with their mission. But even now, I still have 2 OB consultants because as family practice, I realize there's a lot about obstetrics that I just don't know. You can spot a humble person because they are secure enough to admit their mistakes. They're comfortable with being imperfect, they're teachable, they're flexible, and they're quick to share the credit. Our team at our flight simulation business was working on a big project over a lot of months. Toward the end of the project, we hired in a new guy. The team worked really hard, and when the order was completed and shipped, we gave the guys some sweet bonus checks. The new guy on the team had only been there a couple weeks, so he wasn't slated to receive a bonus check. But the guy who was training up the new employee came to us, and he said that the new guy had significant input into the project. He was quick to share the credit and point out the new guy's contribution. Then he asked us to give the new guy half of his bonus. Now that's humility. I want to share with you something sneaky about lack of humility. There's another surprising way lack of humility can express itself. And this expression is the complete opposite of arrogance. It's kind of tricky. Are you ready? It's low self-esteem. Now, stick with me here. I know this doesn't sound like lack of humility. Actually, people with low self-esteem can mistakenly be assumed to be humble. But lack of self-worth is in reality a lack of humility because it's a false humility. I have to say that from my own personal story, I fully agree with this. I recognize that I was manifesting lack of humility in both ways, by my own self-importance at work, as well as simultaneously struggling with low self-worth. Let's pause a moment on this thought. At first glance, these two appear totally opposite, but there's something very important that underlies them. Can you see what it is? It's tricky. Okay, I'll tell you. See if you can see it. Both the people who are arrogant and the people who have low self-worth do not have an accurate view of themselves. The arrogant person thinks more highly of himself than he ought. The person with low self-esteem thinks more lowly of himself than he ought. He's seeing his flaws and his weaknesses without seeing his strengths. Neither the arrogant person or the person with low self-worth have an accurate view of themselves. Both of them are deceived. Both of them lack humility. Being humble is recognizing that we are flawed and we have weaknesses and we need help to accomplish and grow, and also realizing that we have God-given strengths and weaknesses, strengths and abilities that we bring to the table. Humility requires that we have an accurate assessment of ourselves. C.S. Lewis writes this: true humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking about yourself less. To grow in humility, having an accountability partner or a coach can really help here. I needed 2 humility coaches, and just admitting my weakness and asking for help was a humbling enough step for me that it started me on my humbling journey. Okay, before we wrap up, let's review. 3 attributes for success. Let's hear them. Passion, people skills, humility. My guess is that, my guess is that as I've been speaking, you've been thinking about the person next to you who needs some passion, people skills, or humility. And you're probably right, they probably do. But the first thing John Maxwell taught me was that developing a better team always starts with developing myself. He calls it self-improvement. And of course, if you have a leadership role, taking the time to develop these attributes yourself is even more important because you can only teach what you're doing yourself. When we develop in passion, people skills, and humility, we are going to become the people that other people want to be around. We're going to be positioned for success personally, and we will also be contributing to the success of the team. And as we develop these 3 attributes, we will discover that we have accidentally developed into the ideal team player. Okay, we're going to change it up now, and we're going to take a few minutes to put this into practice. In your folder is a short self-assessment. Pull it out. We're going to fill it out right now. The game plan here isn't to discourage you, but to help you to see areas to develop. Remember, we all struggle to some extent in each of these areas. If you realize that you need to grow in an area or 2 or 3, it doesn't mean that you're lazy or inconsiderate or have a bad heart or wrong intentions. Now, no one's going to be collecting these. No one's going to be grading these. This is just an opportunity for you to do some self-introspection. So answer these questions with integrity. I'm going to give you 3 minutes. Okay, 3 minutes. Now remember, these characteristics are not indelibly imprinted on our DNA. With a teachable heart and some guidance, we can grow in these areas. So with the person that you move to sit next to, the person that you feel comfortable with, we're going to do some accountability practicing right now. I'm going to give you some time to share with your accountability partner areas where you need to grow. This accountability piece is really critical. If each member of the team works with an accountability partner and is coaching in areas they feel strong and being coached in areas where they need to grow, the entire team is going to grow together. Okay, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. So that means you each have 2.5 minutes to share with your accountability partner where you need to grow. Okay, that's it.